You're listening to Came From the Radio. You know this is Jennifer Elise Feldy, aka L-Man, aka Dr. Feldy, but really enough about me today. My God, I am wearing my Invisalign today. And Invisalign gives you a speech impediment and it makes it really difficult to talk. But I wanted to see if I could give myself a challenge and do this radio show with Invisalign in. So anyway, we have someone I'm very excited to hear from. Really, I don't want to really do all the talking on this one. I really want to hear from her. I've been listening to other interviews, and here we have it. With no further ado, Tina Erwin is an author who wrote 9 books on metaphysics. She spent 20 years in the Navy working for the submarine force. Did I mention she's a psychic? She's had some very, very interesting experiences, and well, here she is.
Thank you for that fun introduction.
You're welcome. So one of your missions that you said is to help ghosts. So many people are running scared from ghosts, and then you're trying to help them. What is all about?
Well, let me put it this way. If your child died, wouldn't you want someone to help them?
Hmm.
If your grandmother doesn't understand that she's passed away, wouldn't you want someone to kind of look out for her or show her the light? Wouldn't you want someone to help you if you didn't even understand that you were dead?
Yeah.
Instead of being fearful of basic physics, that you said, okay, well, there are such things as ghosts because physics tells me that energy is neither created nor destroyed. So I can go back to basic physics and say, there is an energy here, and it very probably is because this person died here, and they may not know that they have died, or if they do know, they don't know what they're supposed to do next. So I have the tools to help them, and that's really what we want to be able to say here.
So, going right into that for our listeners and some of our watchers, let's say you think you have a ghost in the house, or let's say my grandma just passed, my last grandma, late September. And part of me thinks that maybe she was kind of here before she crossed over. Just really quickly, I'll sum it up. I had to sleep in my guest room because my bedroom became a movie production set for like 3, 4 films, right? Blah, blah, blah. And construction out my window. They're pounding things outside my head. So I had to sleep in my guest room. In my guest room is my grandma's bed that was moved there years ago. She died. Now, this is a few months after she died, but maybe 2 months. Take a nap in the bed. I don't take naps. I go to sleep and I sleep forever. Take a nap, 10, 15, 20 minutes, and dream about her. And in the dream, she's sitting at the dining room table and she was like here and with me. And I remember just thinking, oh, something happened in the dream where it was like a signal that it's ready, she's ready to go. Like, oh, okay, you can go now. Like this happened. Something something happened or occurred in the dream, and she was at the dining room table, and it's like, I go, oh, she can go now. Give her a hug. And then she was gone. But it felt like in the dream, in her bed, in this guest room, which I've never slept in her bed before, that she came to me and we talked at the dining room table, and then she like went somewhere else into another plane. I don't know. And maybe I just made it up in my head. But yes, if my grandma was still here and hoping things were okay, or what the hell maybe she was doing, I would want someone to help her cross over. So long-winded. Now, let's say you think you have someone like my grandma lost here, whatever. What would you tell someone to do?
I would suggest that someone go to ghosthelpers.com and use the crossing over prayer. It's on the website, it's absolutely free, and anyone can say it. You can play it. I have a book called the Crossing Over Prayer Book, which is 88 prayers that help the living and the dead. It's also in Psychic Children, Psychic People. So if you have a psychic child who's sensing, you go into a grocery store where they sell liquor because they're all haunted and your child sees a ghost, you can just play that on your phone on really low and maybe clear an entire grocery store because
Whoa.
you're shopping there. So you have a tool that's been tested literally all over the world. And I have it in, I think, 6 of the books. I have 6 out of the 9 I've written, just so that they're always this prayer is always available. Now, the Crossing Over Prayer book actually has specific prayers if someone died of cancer, or they took their own life, they committed suicide, or they were murdered. When a person's murdered, their frequency is so low because the act of violence is so horrible
Hmm.
that that is a unique prayer. The crossing over prayer will work, but
Hmm.
if you happen to be in that position, or you're in a house like the couple in Colorado many years ago, they bought the house of a serial killer, and they discovered to their horror, because it was not disclosed, the seller knew it, both the agents knew it, but he'd murdered all these people in his living room, put carpet down, and they took the carpet up to see how nice the floors were, discovered all this blood all over these wood floors, and then all these horrible haunting things began to happen. They couldn't live in the house, it was so bad. In that case, you not only need to cross over the victims of murder, you need to cross over the murderer, because he's haunting the living, he's haunting the dead, and he's creating this terrible energy wherever that person died. And I did reach out to my first publisher was the Edgar Cayce Center in Virginia Beach. And they tried to reach out to the producer of the show that talked about this couple, but they were not able to make the connection because we could have cleared that house for them. They
Hmm.
could have replaced the floors, but even if they had replaced the floors without actually crossing over the dead, that's not going to remove the problem. And getting
Wow.
back to the grandmother, there is something called predecessor energy. This is a super important concept
Hmm.
because in her bed, she spent so much of her life there sleeping there. So her
Yeah.
energy is embedded in mattresses and wood, in the box springs, in anything that's connected to the construction of the bed. Her
Hmm.
energy is still there. So you are
Wow.
feeling you're surrounded by it. That's why antique jewelry can be extremely problematic if you don't know who it came from. You could be
Right.
wearing the wedding ring of someone who was murdered. That would be
Right.
really bad. So when you're looking, and that's what that couple found with the blood all over the floor, dried
Right.
dark blood, was this
Hmm.
horrendous predecessor energy. And that can be cleared, but it takes a little work. Just
Right.
redecorating isn't quite going to cut it.
Oh, I've never heard of predecessor energy. I haven't really studied the psychic stuff, I'll call it, dumbing myself down as I often do, which maybe I should stop doing. I haven't heard of that. I'm a trained psychic. I've been trained by some of the people that train some of the top psychics in New York, but I haven't heard of that. But very, very interesting. So I'm going to go off my question list once again. I just came from the gym. My mom gave me a sweater that my grandma didn't wear, but let's just pretend she wore it, okay? It was one of my grandma's sweaters. She passed in September. She just gave it to me. I wear her clothing all the time. So, you mentioned if you're wearing antique jewelry, let's say from a serial killer or a serial killer did something in the house. But let's say you have someone like my grandma who's generally a good person, I would say, or at least at least I thought. I don't think she's a serial killer. Or you had someone who's really good and positive and you're wearing their clothing and their jewelry all the time. Do you think that would influence a person in a positive way or to be like
Yes,
them or something?
absolutely. It would definitely influence you in a positive way.
Huh.
And it's whatever the frequency of the energy is. It's the frequency of the object. In my most recent book, Psychic Children, Psychic People, I have a lot of references to predecessor energy and how it has
Mhm.
affected people. And one of the most remarkable stories was shared with me by Dr. Ibrahim Karim, who
Hmm.
founded a fascinating concept called biogeometry. He spends a great deal of time on predecessor energy. And he tells this story. There was a man who bought a yacht and he got a really good deal on it. and he was bragging about everybody who said that the yacht was cursed. Oh my gosh. It's in salt water. How could it be cursed, right?
Right.
Well, people started to question him. Well, what do you mean your yacht is cursed?
Hmm.
Oh, people say it's cursed because this guy's family members all died and he went bankrupt and another guy died right away and my kids begged me not to buy it, but I think it's fine. Time goes
Well,
on. And he starts to feel bad and then his young son dies and then his mother dies and his finances start to tank. And so the question is, well, who was the original owner of that yacht? Oh, well, it was Heinrich Himmler's yacht, who was the architect of the final solution. So when you own that yacht, you are now participating in the karma of the
wow.
murder of 6 million people.
What? What? Wow.
That is one of the most staggering examples of how predecessor energy can affect you. As an example, would you really want them to, if you lived in Germany, would you want them to level the concentration camps and build condos there? No.
Oh,
And you
God.
wouldn't want to live there because to the core of your being, there's something inside you that says, that's not going to be good for me. That's wrong.
Right. Right.
Well, when you expand this concept and you begin to see how this predecessor energy can affect you over time, or how important it is to clear locations, because
Hmm.
through time you have what are called stacks of time. And we
Okay.
know this is true because if you look at strata of Earth, right,
Hmm.
and see all the different layers of time reflected in the Earth. Well, if different things took place on those layers, then you have what are called stacks of time. I
Hmm.
wrote three books on ghost stories from the ghost point of view, and I talk extensively about stacks of time, which is another way to describe predecessor energy. I cleared a house in New York many years ago, upper state New York. Nothing they did. They said, no psychic's been able to clear it. And I said, well, I'll remote view it and see what I can do.
Hmm.
And I could see that houses on this land had burned down repeatedly, one fire after the other. So what I did was I sifted through stacks of time energetically to find the initiating event.
Okay.
And it was that this was this beautiful tree in, land of the Oneida Indians. These Native Americans had welcomed, they're such a peaceful group, they had welcomed these new people who came from Europe and England.
Okay.
Well, one of the ships, they brought blankets, gave them to the Native American people that were full of smallpox, and they died. And
Oh.
the new settlers also died because they were weak and they were hungry and their immune systems were low. Well, to kill the virus, they burned all the dwellings. So they burned not only the settler dwellings, they burned all of the Hogans for all of the Oneida tribe. And then one by one, every single tribes member died. And the
Wow.
shaman was there and he was so angry. And I could see all of these dead settlers and Native American people. And the tragedy of this lingers on the land. So
Right.
I crossed all of them over. There were several hundred people.
Wow.
And I gave healing to the land and I invited the shaman to tell me what happened. And he got to tell somebody what happened to him, how hard this was for him. And it just destroyed him that everyone said, why are our children dying? Why are they covered and they look this bad? And
Hmm.
he was powerless to stop this pestilence.
Ah,
And as everything was burned down, he said, "Who will know of us? Our very
hmm.
being will be erased." But my point is that because of predecessor energy, I got
Yeah,
to tell his story, and it's now immortalized in the ghost story books.
right,
Once I cleared the property, I said, "Have you had problems with fire in this house?" And she said, "How could you know that?" She said, "We've had one kitchen fire after the other."
right.
And so they didn't have any more fires. And once all of those people were crossed over, they said the difference was just literally night and day.
Wow. So
So
do you
that
think
is another unique example of not an object, but the land itself with predecessor energy and stacks of
right?
time.
The question, and this is probably in your book, but let's say I didn't read all the books. There's nine of them. Hopefully, I will in this lifetime. I really do want to hear. Um, do you think that the fires were caused by ghosts, spirit, or do you think it was just like the luck of the land, or do you think it was caused by some type of entity?
When you have fire energy, a
Hmm.
place that has burned before has a resonance with fire energy.
Okay.
And it's just really hard to explain it,
Hmm.
but it has a resonance with fire energy. It's not necessary, it can be an entity. If you have all of these individuals who died and they watched everything go up in flames, so you have the resonance of fire, you have the grief of those who
Hmm.
died, and you have the energy of all of those ghosts there, which is very detrimental for the land and for the living. No matter how many stacks of time you are above the original event. I would have to answer you by saying it can be many things. If there were many
Hmm.
murders there,
Hmm.
and I've done looked at this too, what you have is that energy is so low frequency. You have to raise the frequency of a location. That's why I wrote karma and frequency, so you could understand the tools you need to raise the frequency of a location and shift that energy. There's tools you
That's
can
great.
use.
And which book is that in? What's that called? What's the name of
It's
that
called
book?
karma and frequency.
Karma and frequency. And you know what? We're not at the end of the interview, but why don't you tell our listeners, watchers, where to find you, your website, your social media? Let's just do that now.
You can find me on ghosthelpers.com or tinaerwin.com, Erwin with an E. On
Okay.
ghosthelpers.com, there are many different podcasts that I've done. All the books are listed and they are linked directly to Amazon. So if you have an account at Amazon, that's where they are. By the end of this week, they should all be audiobooks. I have one last one to do. And I'm on LinkedIn. I am not on Facebook for many, many reasons, having been in the military. Maybe you can understand that.
Hmm.
And I'm not on Twitter, but I am on LinkedIn and will hopefully soon be on Instagram just a little bit.
Okay. Well, I have so many more questions for you. We have 2 minutes left max. So I guess you'll have to answer this one in 30 seconds or less. And maybe this will be an intro to another interview if you're willing to come back.
Absolutely.
Real simple. I make movies and films and all types of stuff here in this home. Uh, simply put, some scenes are positive. A lot of the scenes we've been shooting are super, super negative and brutal, and you're killing someone. Do you think that filmmakers can create positive or negative karma for a house, for a place, for themselves, and change the trajectory of their own lives for the better, for the worse, with the type of content, horror or positive, that they create?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Because you're creating an energy vibration that
Ah,
you have to clear every single time you finish, you wrap a film, you have to clear the energy.
ah, yep. Because I will tell you, this will be my final thought for this one. A lot of anytime I've shot horror, negative, scary stuff, I feel weird for a while, and I will say my health plummeted after the last shoot, and it was all horror, negative shoot, which I'm not really. I would do
You
comedy
opened
if
a
it was.
portal. You opened up a portal.
Okay. Yeah, it was very weird. There's a lot of been my whole health has been horrible up until a few days ago since November 29th. So that'll have to be for another day. Tina, give us your final thought. Anything you want any listeners, viewers to know about you, or anything on your mind?
I would like to offer people the crossing over prayer. It's in
Okay.
virtually every one of my books on some level. When you use this prayer, it is the compassion you will want for yourself, and it connects you personally directly to God. It is one
Okay.
of the most beautiful, powerful things one human being can do for any soul on earth. And I want to thank you for having me so much. I am so grateful for the opportunity to share some really practical tools.
Yeah, and these things are really meaningful. And then another interview, hopefully we could do a follow-up or a follow-up after that. I can explain a little bit of why the work you do is so freaking important and specifically how it even impacted me and made my life better in under 5 minutes of just listening to maybe 2 minutes of your interviews. So you're doing a great job and really making a positive impact, as you know. But you know what? Sometimes it's nice to hear it. So on that note, we're like a minute over. Thanks for listening to It Came From the Radio and back to the studio, Mark Torres, for more.